Tonight, Charlotte finds itself at the center of a tragedy that has shaken the entire nation. The brutal and heartbreaking fatal stabbing of 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee Iryna Zarutska aboard the Lynx Blue Line light rail. Iryna came to America hoping for safety, opportunity, and a better future, but instead, her life was cut short in a horrifying act of violence that has left the city stunned and grieving. But as this devastating story unfolds, the spotlight isn't just on the tragedy itself. It's now firmly focused on Charlotte's leadership, law enforcement policies, and a justice system that many are calling dangerously broken. In a public statement following the attack, Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles described the stabbing as senseless and heartbreaking, but her response has triggered a nationwide backlash. Instead of addressing public safety concerns head-on, the mayor urged media outlets and the public not to share the surveillance footage of the incident, insisting that it should be withheld out of respect for the victim's family. While some initially saw this as a compassionate plea, critics across the political spectrum argue that the mayor's priorities are deeply misplaced. They say this isn't about shielding a grieving family. It's about controlling the narrative and avoiding accountability. Why? Because the suspect at the center of this case, Decarlos Brown Jr., is no stranger to law enforcement. Court records reveal a long and violent criminal history, repeated mental health diagnoses, and previous institutionalization for schizophrenia. And yet, despite his extensive criminal record and clear danger to the public, Brown was released under judicial decisions and policies that critics describe as recklessly lenient. This raises painful questions. How did a man with such a documented history of violence end up free on the streets? Why wasn't he monitored more closely? And most importantly, why wasn't Iryna protected from someone the system already knew was a threat? This tragedy has exposed a larger systemic failure, a dangerous gap between mental health intervention and public safety enforcement. Experts argue that while compassion for individuals with mental illness is necessary, failing to act when someone poses a clear, documented risk has deadly consequences. And yet, time and time again, policies favor leniency over safety, until lives are lost. But that's only part of the story. The mayor's handling of this crisis has become a flashpoint for outrage. On social media, hashtags like hashtag Justice for Iryna and hashtag Charlotte Demands Answers are trending, with thousands accusing city leaders of prioritizing political optics over community protection. Critics point out that instead of calling for urgent reforms, the mayor is focusing on preventing the video from spreading, which many see as an attempt to bury the severity of what happened. In an emotionally charged segment, several news hosts reacted live to her comments, visibly shocked and even calling her plea disgusting and tone-deaf, arguing that the public has a right to know the truth and see the reality of the situation. As the outrage builds, the community itself is demanding answers. Residents are speaking out, saying they no longer feel safe riding public transportation, walking home at night, or even trusting the system to protect them. Advocacy groups are now calling for sweeping reforms, tougher sentencing for violent offenders, stronger oversight of judicial release decisions, and better coordination between mental health facilities and law enforcement to ensure potentially dangerous individuals are properly monitored. Meanwhile, the victim's family, still processing an unimaginable loss, is at the heart of this storm. Friends describe Iryna as a bright, kind, and determined young woman who had her whole future ahead of her. She fled Ukraine hoping to escape violence, only to lose her life in the very place she thought she'd be safe. Her story has resonated deeply with millions, fueling conversations about immigrant safety, public trust and leadership, and the role of government in preventing tragedies like this from happening again. This case has also reignited a national debate over soft-on-crime policies and the balance between compassionate reform and public safety. While some argue that the justice system is too harsh and needs restructuring, others believe tragedies like this are the inevitable result of policies that release dangerous individuals back into society without proper safeguards. Charlotte's leadership is under intense scrutiny, with many calling for independent investigations into how this was allowed to happen and whether failures in leadership contributed directly to Iryna's death. As we continue to follow this story, we'll take you through every detail: the timeline of events leading up to the attack, the suspect's documented history, the mayor's controversial response, and the explosive backlash now shaking City Hall. We'll hear from legal experts, mental health advocates, community leaders, and everyday citizens who are demanding justice and reform. And most importantly, we'll honor Iryna's memory by making sure her story sparks the change that could save lives in the future. Because this isn't just about one tragic incident. This is a wake-up call for Charlotte, for North Carolina, and for the entire country. If the system couldn't protect Iryna, how safe are the rest of us? How many more innocent lives must be lost before leaders confront the hard truths about violent offenders, broken mental health systems, and policies that put the public at risk? Tonight, we'll go deeper than the headlines. We'll ask the uncomfortable questions, challenge those in power, and give a voice to a grieving community demanding change. And as this investigation unfolds, one thing is painfully clear. Charlotte is standing at a crossroads. The choices its leaders make now will define not only justice for Iryna, but the safety and future of everyone who calls this city home.